welcome everybody. We're glad you're a part of this discussion today. Appreciate your involvement. I'm going to turn it over to Colleen, who is going to kind of lead or facilitate this discussion with QSide on data. And so, Colleen, I'll turn it over to you. You'll have to unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. Well, welcome. We're very excited to have Keysight presenting today about where we are with the development of the data dashboards that they've been working with us on over the last several months, and sort of maybe a short update on where they are in our thinking around a community thriving index, at least our preliminary conversations. So we have Tyrone and we have Carlos. Do we have Jude with us?
I don't see him on the call.
Okay, that's fine.
Sorry,
I think Tyrone and Carlos have the floor. So I'll turn it over to you all, and then we'll have plenty of time for questions and discussion, feedback, input in terms of where we are on the data piece. So Carlos?
Perfect. Hello. So yeah, just a brief introduction. I'm Carlos Gonzalez, a research fellow with QSide. I've had the pleasure of working on this community safety and well-being dashboard over the last couple of months. And we wanted to take this opportunity to share a bit some of the work, hear some of the reactions and thoughts, and hopefully share a tool that may be helpful to all of you. So if you don't mind, let me see if I can share my screen over here. Perfect. Can everyone see that okay? Perfect. Yeah, so just to talk a bit about the work we did prior to doing the visualizations and the tool itself. A lot of work went into identifying variables that may help paint this picture, right, of a community safety and well-being. And I would like to preface that I personally think this is extremely valuable work, especially with everything that is happening right now. A lot of the data that you're going to see and a lot of the tools that we're used to develop, the dashboard are currently no longer available as openly as well. So I think this is going to be a very valuable resource going forward, right, for many people. So through the work with the data map, we looked for some variables that would help identify economic, health, education indicators that would tell us a bit about the community. So most of our data is coming from the American Community Survey, and they release these products every 5 years. I believe they're supposed to, but we'll see what happens. They're supposed to release a new set of data in the upcoming months. But this is sort of their latest available data. We tried to have data that's available across the country at a census tract level, which would be sort of the smallest unit geographically speaking, right? So in order to be able to provide that information at a very detailed level. And yeah, I'll walk through some of the process itself. This tool will be made available online for everyone to access. We'll be sharing some of the link and ways to access it later. But this is the basics of the tool, right? So you'll be presented with a map, and this will be the data aggregated at a state level, right? If you're interested in looking at certain variables at a state level, you can do that. And over here, you can choose the year for the data. As I mentioned, this is the latest product available. So this will be from 2018 to 2022, but some data is only available until 2021. And over here in this drop-down menu, you can see some of the variables that we have incorporated into the visualization. So some interesting ones are civic and social organizations per 1,000, percentage of foreign-born population, median income, mental health physicians per 1,000, percentage of households with food stamps or SNAP, and some education indicators, right? Such as residents with high school education or higher, residents over 3 and older enrolled in school. So yeah, we'll choose, for instance, median income, right? And we'll look at Oklahoma here. So once we click on the state, we're able to visualize the data at a county level. So this would be, yeah, the counties in Oklahoma, and we'll be able to see, for instance, the median income, right? And if we click on that county, we'll be able to see the data at the census tract level, which, as I mentioned, would be the smallest, one of the smallest units that the American Census offers. And if you click back, you'll get back to the state view, right? Over here, you can select some other metrics. So for instance, we can look at mean travel time to work, right? So as you can see, one of the indicators and determinants of well-being could be, how much time are people spending on their cars on their way to work, right? On their daily commutes. So if we look at, for instance, California, we see some areas that have considerably higher commuting times, 30 minutes or so for LA County. And we can get even more detail here. And yeah, that's sort of the basics of the tool itself. At the bottom here, you'll have the state means for what you selected. So for instance, since we were looking at California and mean travel times, we'll look at the state average. And we previously selected LA County. So we'll be looking at the average for that county itself. But we could select another place right here, such as Wyoming. We see that travel times are going to be a lot higher, a lot lower, sorry. And we can get, yeah, even more detailed places where just commuting times are 8 minutes or so. And you can change the data that we're visualizing, right? So for instance, we're looking at the number of residents 3 and older enrolled in school. We have 743, 554, 488. And we can go back at the state view as well. So that would be the basics of the tool, right? And we hope that this tool can, help tell a story, right? I think we previously were looking at median income, right? So one of the interesting examples that we were looking at was how does median income relate with the percentage of foreign-born population in some areas, right? We see that in Oklahoma, for instance, in this area, we have some of the highest percentage, 26%. But if we look at median income, it's going to be one of the lowest ones, below the state average for that year as well. So I think this is like a very interesting tool to sort of start formulating these stories, right? How do all these things connect? And especially at a very detailed level as well. If you want to look at the data at a state or county level as well, you can do that and sort of compare how all of these variables work together to tell a story about that community. So that would be the basics of the tool, and I'm happy to hear some, any questions, any feedback that you may have. I see Justin has his hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Carlos. This is amazing. Curious though, as you were looking at what was it, graduation rates and median income, or I guess my question is, when you've got two different things you might want to look at, is there a way to do that to visualize basically comparing two variables so you could really have an area pop kind of on the map, or is it kind of one variable at a time that you're using with the pull downs and then figuring it out based
Yeah.
on other graphs?
So far, what we've been doing is a single variable, right? But one of the things that we had considered and might probably get incorporated soon was creating like an index based on like specific factors, right? And that's something that I had been working on during the last couple of days, and just trying to figure out, what would be some of those variables that really tell a story. And I think that's the hardest part, right? Deciding what things can really give you a full view, um, while reducing, right, the number of inputs. But that's definitely, yeah, I think something valuable that we may look into adding in the future as well.
Great, thanks.
Carlos, could you zoom into New York City? And we have a site in East Harlem, and I would just be curious to see it in a very populated area, what it looks like.
Yes, 1 second. So,
So right in
um,
Manhattan, probably northern Manhattan, yeah.
yeah, so that would be like around here, right? Yeah. So yeah, this would be the census tracts within Manhattan. Um, so yeah, is there anything in particular that any metric in particular that you would be interested in looking at?
Percentage of foreign born.
Yeah, so in some areas it's gonna be, yeah, 40,
Right.
30%. I think it's gonna be some of the highest
Right.
across the country, right? Yeah,
Mhm.
and we have another one percentage of non-native English speakers as well, which I think
Mhm.
is something really valuable, especially when you're trying to decide, like, if your program needs to share some materials or something, right? Um, yeah, this can really help guide some of those decisions as well, right? Because we see some areas that are, especially in the northern part here, from what I'm seeing, 30, 40% of people that are non-native English speakers. I think this question, and this is something that I wanted to share as well. We're also currently working on having a specific data dictionary that's going to be able to, tell you precisely what the question or what the variable is, right? Because it's hard to fit all the meaning within a short phrase. But I think this question specifically comes from the American Community Survey, asking respondents whether they consider that they can speak English at a good level, right? Um, so I think this is something interesting, right, to look at, especially if you're looking at, yeah, any programs, any work that you're conducting in this area. You're seeing places where it's 30, 40% of people that, don't have English skills at that level.
Carlos,
Go
sorry,
ahead.
I was just
Go
going to
ahead.
ask, and are you able to, you're not able to break it down into ethnicity as well? Or
No,
No.
not at the moment, no.
Mhm. Or
Yeah.
language, even particular languages?
Mm. No, I think, yeah, that would be something we could look at in the future, but not currently, no.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Kiana, if you have the census tract number, you should be able to look that up, not in this dashboard, but get the demographic breakdown by census tract area for both ethnic diversity, other kinds of demographics. And I don't know if they have language in the census or not, but
Well, how difficult would it be to put that on our dashboard? Because I think it'd be
Um,
relevant in Schenectady as well as East Harlem and probably some of the other areas.
that could
I
be done like, oh, sorry, were you gonna say something?
I was only going to say I have that data. I don't exactly know how I got it, but I have that data for Harlem, according to the different all the public schools in Manhattan, actually, broken down into ethnicities and languages for foreign-born kids. But I don't know where I got the data from, so I just was curious if it was also here.
Yeah, I think one of the goals while working with this project was to not create a black box, right? We wanted to create sort of a product that can be iterated and everything. So what we tried to have was sort of an engine that you could pour data into it and it will produce these visualizations and these insights, right? So I'll try to definitely take a look at the data that's available right now. Because yeah, we have sort of created a system where the data can be passed to this dashboard and easily incorporated. But I think right now some of the census tools are down as well. So yeah, but yeah, I think, and that's something that we can definitely share some resources too in the future about how, if you're interested in a very particular metric, we can definitely share some instructions about how to add this to the dashboard as well.
Other questions for Carlos?
Carlos, is 2021 your most recent data? And if so, when will you get more updated data?
Yeah, so the American Community Survey, they released this 5-year products, right? So I believe the latest one was supposed to be scheduled between this and next year. However, all of that right now is still unclear. But yeah, they're sort of in 5-year batches. That's how they work. They have 3-year estimates, but the data that they have is not as comprehensive, right, across all census tracts. So the 5-year estimates are going to cover more of the country, but it's sort of a trade-off, right? But yeah, that's something, like I said, this is sort of a tool that we wanted to create that we have a predefined system to input data into it in the future as well. So it's not sort of like a closed system where it's said and done, but we wanted to have something that in the future, if there's interest in, some other metrics, some new data is available, it could be introduced to the tool.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Yeah, does the new data, will that start to at some point include our data from our own programs or even just, I guess one thing I'm thinking is looking across all the different Act Now sites, are there ways we'd look at the data with that as sort of the lens, right? Do we find that there's commonalities in some of the data about some of the areas that we work? Does that help us to uncover new areas that might be a good fit for us to consider expanding our programs? I don't want to spiral too far into data analysis stuff, but is that part of the plan, Carlos, to start to incorporate not only the data that's publicly available, but some of our own as well?
Yeah, so we're currently working with some students from Michigan State University to sort of expand on this tool as well, and specifically incorporate data from the sites. So it would be sort of a similar process, right? Have the sites share some data and create this process that will allow that data to enter a tool similar to this and be able to get insights as well. Because yeah, some of the data, right, I believe it was mentioned previously, like, oh, I have some data about schools, right? That might only be applicable to that specific community or area, but not available nationwide. So I think that's something in the works that we're having right now. Creating that tool that can help, if you only have data for that community, or a variable that's only specific to a single place as well. So that's something we're currently working on with the students from MSU, and we'll update you about that soon.
Great, thanks.
Justin, we do have the data that Tanner and Daryl have been collecting from the sites. It more is tracking the activities in the sites, that you can see across sites the level of doing breaking bread events or listening sessions, or sort of the meeting of the Justice Circle groups in terms of making change happen based on what they're learning in listening sessions and breaking bread events. So we have some of that, which is more output data than it is risk factor or protective factor data. So we sort of have that data set that's different than what you're talking about, but we do have some data across sites that sort of shows the level of activity.
I have a question. I'm curious about metrics related to school attendance and what's in the tool already. And then I'm also curious about the ability to add that type of data into this kind of already existing tool, and if that's a possibility. I think a lot of our sites are curious about those types of things.
Yeah, so we've been doing a lot of work, right, with the school presence or chronic absenteeism work. One of the issues that we ran into is that classifications for that are very location specific, right? I think we were just looking at some of the schools across some of the Act Now sites, and even some school districts will classify, right, what unexcused absence is, and those classifications will vary. But that's definitely something that we're planning to continue building, specifically for the tool that's going to look at the sites. Yeah, because as I mentioned, it's very specific, so it's not sort of, I think it would be very hard to incorporate a metric like that for a tool that you're trying to get like a nationwide picture for that. So currently we just have some of the ACS, like American Community Survey data regarding, graduation rates. And yeah, I think it gets broken down 3 years old or population at some point. Yeah.
Carlos, it's also
Yeah.
interesting that just today, the New York Times published a major article on a research study that was done, I think, at Harvard School of Education, on reading levels and math levels. Um, and since COVID and the impact that COVID has had on school performance. Also, we may want to look at Attendance Works, that organization, which is going to be a partner of ours on the school issue, on some of the data they've collected. But I think your point is right on. Is what we've discovered as we've gotten into this. Districts define absenteeism in a different way. Attendance Works is trying to get all 50 states to come up with a uniform data collection. In fact, states are signing on. I think they've got 23 states currently out of the 50 states that have signed on to this commitment to keep kids in school and creating presence. And part of the issue is uniform data collection, and seeing if they can get the states to develop that. So,
Yeah, is what you're referencing, I think it's called the country report card, right? That
yeah.
came out a couple of days ago. Yeah. makes like it's hard results, right? Especially coming after COVID and all of that.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I would be interested to see sort of what data came out of that, right? At a state and county level, that could be something that could be definitely integrated into a tool like this.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think school data is, local school data is very interesting. It's very difficult, as you said, Carlos, to make it consistent across sites for comparison purposes. But as a former school board member, we had access to the mobility rate within the school. What was the percentage of turnover? And the schools I represented had 110 or 120% turnover. Well, how does that happen? You probably have 20% of the population turning over every month because they're homeless or they're low income and in unstable housing situations. That's really important information to know what your stability rate is or instability rate is in a school. It tells you a lot about the population that you're dealing with and their risk factors. The same with free and reduced lunch, and there are other data sets like that that are really useful, and they're very localized. So you can narrow it down to a school attendance area in a way that helps, like our Act Now sites that are doing very local work. It really gives you grassroots data that's super important to understand what you're dealing with in order to design solutions or responses that are going to be helpful.
Yeah, no, and I think as I was introducing previously this project as well, what's fascinating is that it's a very complex phenomenon, right? There's not a single metric that's going to be able to tell you why students are not showing up to school or what's happening, right? But it's a lot of factors at play, right? Things like available transportation around them, and sort of think some of the metrics that we have, like if your household has a computer, right? Most of the work nowadays for kids at school is going to involve some sort of internet access, computer access as well. So seeing, do kids in this area have access to that? Do these households have those tools as well?
Yeah.
I think it's interesting to be able to see and think about some of these processes, right, that may affect presence as well.
Cheryl made a comment in the chat box that the fact that we have hybrid models where sometimes kids are in school, sometimes they're online for whatever reason. We certainly saw it in COVID, but even now, sometimes with snow days or whatever, flu outbreaks or whatever. And just, I think the whole change of perception around the importance of attendance and being present after COVID is really what we're wrestling with. And so it is complicated. It's very localized and site specific. But I think our goal is understanding what data might be available. So even as the MSU students help think about what we can add or do to strengthen this current dashboard, we might think about, Carlos, a dashboard that our sites can add data to, that they could input themselves. It's like another tab that they could input. So Tiana has access to certain data based on school percentages for ethnicity, for language, those kinds of things, that she could drop into the format, and it would be a tool that could help her see how that data could be helpful. But I also realize that's probably another task and another budget and another, but it's something as you're utilizing the resources of the MSU students or other resources, as you're working to, sort of take this to another level through other projects, helping us to accommodate that need for being able to utilize really local data that can't be extrapolated nationally or even county-wide or statewide because it's a school district or a policing district or whatever.
Hey, Carlos, I'm really excited about the tool. Thank you for all your work, you and all the folks at QSide. For us, the discussion about truancy and chronic absenteeism is the first part of a longer conversation that ends up being about young people in the workforce, these opportunity youth folks in the workforce. And frankly, I would love to see if you could incorporate some of the absentee numbers into the model. I'm not sure how you would do that, but there are already lots of whistles and bells on it that will help us as we try to now take this conversation to business leaders around town to say, hey, how would you like to have more workers? How would you like to help us explore how we can improve the quality of the workforce and employ more of these younger people? And it looks to me like this tool will really help us to have that particular conversation.
Yeah, thank you, John. Yeah, yeah, and I think, beyond that, that might also help identify any other possible sites or locations that may need some of this work, right? Some of this workforce development as well. And yeah, identify how is an area being underserved, right? So yeah.
Any other thoughts or questions for Carlos? Tyrone, I don't know if you've been part of the conversation. I know that John has been, and Dallas, with sort of our conversation around creating a community thriving index. And in some ways, we could actually use this tool if we were able to identify protective factors that we could measure that would give us a sense of how well communities are doing. I don't know if you're comfortable speaking at all to sort of where you think we are in that conversation.
Yeah, excuse me, just a little under the weather, but a lot of this really came, this whole dashboard, this whole idea really came from those talks that we had with sites over the summer, kind of saying like, well, what are the things that you see in your community that tell you, right, about health, about how your community is doing, about thriving, right? Because it isn't just as simple as, median income or like all these things. There's a lot of other things that go into it. So Carlos, I mean, he's really doing a lot of the great work. But yeah, as a team, sort of figuring out those things that really give a holistic, sense of like, okay, like, are people coming together? Are people meeting? Is there a holistic range of services, right? And trying to, create a model that both highlights, and a dashboard and a visualization tool that highlights both a community's strengths, and what, because most communities are doing something right, they're putting in the work, they're really investing. And yeah, we also want to highlight those places that, maybe more work or love or time needs to be poured into. But, trying to also capture too those successes. And I think those successes are really important. So yeah, we're working and we're trying to sort of, figure out the science around it to make sure that it's, as basically justifiable as possible so that it's giving the sort of best results. But yeah, we're moving there and really excited to adding another dimension to how we can sort of do those cross-site comparisons like we're talking about.
So anything else on this, Colleen?
I don't think so. I think we're there.
All right. Just a couple of announcements. We are organizing a youth advisory committee to speak into the chronic absenteeism or the creating presence in schools. And we're asking sites to consider one or two students that you think would be interested in participating. This initially Lexi is going to be organizing the youth advisory group, and we're going to be interviewing the young people that you nominate just to be sure that they fully understand what this is. We'll probably be meeting monthly for the first couple of months, and then after that, we may move to quarterly meetings. But we want to get youth input into the design of what we're doing on youth deflection, and particularly as it relates to school attendance. So, if you have a couple of people that you're working with, young people, let us know, and let Lexi and me know, and we'll work with them. Also, the Opportunity Youth Forum is going to be in Los Angeles in May, and we're going to submit a proposal for a workshop. They've asked us to submit proposals, and we want to focus on the youth attendance issue as a youth deflection or strategies to deal with this. School attendance being a part of keeping young people out of the criminal justice system, and the opportunity to create employment, and the relationship of school graduation rates, school attendance, to the viability of employment. And so we want to be telling some of the stories that you're putting together and some of the challenges that we're facing in getting this done, in terms of the school districts that you're working with. And so I think we don't have any national budget money, but we might have to assist in terms of travel to Los Angeles when this comes. But you could use your grants also to attend the Opportunity Youth Forum in Los Angeles. And depending on the number of people we get going, we may have our own separate meeting. But Colleen, do you remember the dates? I guess I could look real quick.
May 19th to the 22nd.
Yeah. So be thinking about that. And I think also to let you know, finally, the Pasquayaki have come on board. Colleen and I are meeting with them in a couple of weeks. We'll be going to Tucson. We're going to Oklahoma City as well, to John's Breaking Bread event on the 25th, which is going to be a big event. And we're working to get Walmart to attend that meeting. And so we'll be on the road for about a week, going to Oklahoma, then to Tucson, to kind of officially onboard Pasquayaki. We've moved it out of the public defender's office, and we're now putting it into the youth development office, where this probably more appropriately belongs from the beginning. But that's another story. So, okay. Any
I think
questions? Go
Justin
ahead.
had a comment or a question.
Oh, I didn't see that. So, Justin?
Oh, it's all right. I took care of it.
Okay.
Thanks.
Great. Any other questions or comments?
Just want to thank QSide for their work, and thank our sites for their commitment to meeting with them regularly over the summer with the student interns that were working on the project. Carlos has done a great job of taking all of that work and really moving the dashboard forward. So we appreciate his skills and his commitment. It looks like Tanner has a comment. Tanner?
I was just curious about access, and if somebody wants to poke around like myself, how might I do that? And is this something that will be available, or something that we need to come to you at QSide for a meeting to walk us through it, or kind of how that works?
Yeah, I can, Colleen and Jim, maybe I could share a link maybe that could be sent out later through Circle. Yeah.
Yep, we
If
can
that works best.
permanently on Circle as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so the tool just, it would be able to be accessed online. And you'll have the same layout, same workings as you saw today. So yeah, thank you. I just wanted to say also thank you all for your support. We've also received, feedback and ideas, suggestions as well. So we appreciate that as well. So thank you.
Good. Okay.
Great.
Have a good week, everyone. Keep riding this wave.
Thank you.